Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And check out that eye, that's exactly what we want to see. Woo, look at that panel, baby. And that, as they say, is that. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for my overview of the Jupiter's Legacy Library Edition Hardcover Volume 1 from Dark Horse Comics. So let's go ahead and take a look at this book together. Before going any further, a big thank you to the folks at Dark Horse Comics for sending us a copy of this library edition. So this edition is out everywhere already, and it is the fourth library edition from the Mark Millar library, since he brought all his stuff over to Dark Horse Comics. And here we have two of the main characters on this cover, the Utopian and Lady Liberty. Jupiter's Legacy, Mark Millar, Wilfredo Torres, and Chris Sprouse right there. And then the spine of the book, Jupiter's Legacy, Millar, Torres, Sprouse, 1, and Dark Horse. It's interesting that they're starting with this because this isn't really Jupiter's Legacy. What this is Jupiter's Circle. And then the back of the book right here featuring the Utopian, and then the ISBN down there, the Netflix logo. And it's a comics graphic novel media tie-in. Because I think there was an adaptation of Jupiter's Legacy, but they never touched upon Jupiter's Circle. $49.99. Well, I have the dust jacket on, because it does come with a dust jacket. Let's go ahead and put it right up there with the rest of the Mark Millar library editions. I assume there's going to be a Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2 that will actually collect Jupiter's Legacy. So underneath the dust jacket, let's go ahead and take a look. It's the exact same thing. Here's what the flaps look like. You have Skyfox and Utopian over here. And then, again, looks identical to what the dust jacket looks like. And this time around, we have golden gilded edges. I mean, a golden ribbon right there. All right, we are going to open this book up, take a look at the artwork, and give you a pitch of the story and where it kind of fits into the chronological reading order of Jupiter's Legacy. Okay, let's go ahead and get this opened. Here we have Skyfox right here, the end sheets, and same end sheets there. Jupiter's Legacy Library Edition Volume 1, written by Mark Millar. And there we have the Utopian with Jane. Who the heck is Jane? And then your artist, Wilfredo Torres, Chris Sprouse, who actually take the top billing for this. And then other artists right there, including Ty Templeton. And it kind of makes sense when you look at the art and what exactly is happening here. Ive Vorsina and Miroslav Mirva are the colorists. Peter Doherty is the letterer. Your cover art is by Frank Whiteley, who actually created the characters of Jupiter's Legacy along with Mark Millar. So this is the same cover of issue number 1. They are framed, by the way, the issue numbers, but it is that cover of the Utopian and Grace, Lady Liberty. This all takes place in the past. And hold on, let me just show you. This is talking about where heroes are resting and how people come and, give their dedications to these heroes. And then we have an immediate flashback in 1959. So it's very important to note that these characters have already gotten spoilers for Jupiter's Legacy, because this takes place before Jupiter's Legacy starts. So after 1932. So in 1932, remember, Sheldon and all his friends went to the island, I think it's west of Cape Verde, and they ended up getting superpowers because of a dream that he had, and sure enough, they came back. Well, that's what this is about. This is about that time after they came back and after they were established being the heroes. So each one of these stories is broken down by 2 issues, but there is an overall arc, right? Because this is all, again, taking place in the late 50s. The first story in here focuses on the character of the Blue Bolt. So this is a character that his name is Richard. Oh, what is it? Conrad or no, I think it is Richard Conrad. So Richard is the superhero known as the Blue Bolt. He's part of the Union, and he fights alongside his friends, but he also is a doctor. And so he has like a real job, and not just a superhero. And he is a closeted homosexual. And in the 50s, like, he could not get that out. So the only person that knows is his friend over here. I think it's his Sammy. Or no, Danny. Danny's his friend. He tells Danny everything. And Danny's like, man, who cares? You're a superhero. You should be, like, telling everybody. And he's like, I can't. You know, it would destroy the rest of the Union. So he ends up going to a party. I think it's Katharine Hepburn. And he ends up hooking up with the guy there. And somebody takes pictures. And that's when J. Edgar Hoover the FBI director discovers that, you know, this guy's a homosexual on the team of the Union. So he is trying to blackmail him, saying that he will destroy everything unless Richard gives him the names of all of the Union. He wants to know everybody's name because, you know, this is, of course, J. Edgar Hoover, right? So manipulation and blackmailing is all in his name. And that story, like I said, wraps up interesting. You know, that you can see how it wraps up and how Richard deals with it. But you kind of see the relationships that all these 6 superheroes have together. The next storyline, again, 2 issues, focuses on Fitz right here. This is the guy known as the Flare. He has a wife at home, and during one mission, he ends up rescuing this young lady named April Kelly, who's a lot younger than he is. I think she is 19 years old, and she's like, you know, I've always wanted to be a superhero. She invites him back to her place. Again, he's married with kids and part of the Union, and he's weak. So he ends up having an affair on his wife, right? He takes her on as a sidekick. He's like, absolutely, you can be my sidekick. She doesn't have any superpowers, right? So he's not thinking straight. And he invites her to join the Union, and they're like, hell no, she can't join. This is stupid. You can't have her join. She doesn't have any superpowers. She's going to get hurt. So he ends up deciding that he wants to leave his wife, after talking to a bartender of all people, that he wants to leave his wife and ask April to be with him. Now, something horrible happens here, and there's a lesson to be learned, and you can find out exactly what happens when he ends up leaving his wife, and yeah, what happens to the character. The next storyline is right here. It's found in this chapter. And this is about the character of Skyfox. This is George. And really, it's the story of not just George, but also Walter. Walter Sampson. So Walter and Sheldon are brothers, right? Walter's the brainwave, and George is known as Skyfox. So George is more like Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark put together. He's a very rich guy and happens to have superpowers. And he's kind of a wise ass. Like, he likes cracking jokes, and most of the time it's at the expense of Walter. Well, one day he ends up falling in love, totally falling in love with this young lady right here. So this is when he ends up falling in love with this young lady, and he asks her out on a date, and he ends up proposing to her. But again, like, the character of George is kind of a joker, an immature brat. And, you know, again, doing a lot of jokes and at the expense of Walter, Brainwave over here. And one day, there's your gold ribbon, he ends up proposing to her on the moon. Like, he blows up all these pieces of dynamite, and it says, will you marry me? And she says, no, I need a grown-up. So Sonny ends up leaving and going into Brainwave's arm. And this causes a ruckus, right? Like, this causes a big fight between Skyfox and Brainwave, because he thinks Brainwave is manipulating her, that he's using his powers to get her to fall in love with Brainwave. So you can find out how that ends. The next issues in here are about, of course, the Utopian and his wife. So Later on in Jupiter's Legacy, the Utopian and Lady Liberty Grace are together. But this is where we find out, I love that face, kind of looks like Reagan right there, and probably on purpose, right? That he had a wife before Grace, and her name was Jane. And Jane did not have any superpowers. She talks about how in love they are, how perfect their marriage is, and kind of on the opposite side is where Grace is having problems finding a date, finding a man, because everybody that she meets immediately feels like they're not worthy enough to be with her. So while Jane and the character of Samson's life are perfect, right? Like you have Sheldon and Jane here like having a nice picnic dinner on one of the moons of Jupiter where he discovers a device, and perhaps that device could be something awful. But their life is perfect. Meanwhile, Grace's life is falling apart. She can't find anybody. We finally see Sky Fox make a return to the book. And what the next arc in here is all about, actually, he's with a bunch of hippies, and there's a lot of like riots going on. And they're like, dude, you have superpowers. Why aren't you helping? And he's like, where's my costume? So he finally does, and he's trying to do the right thing. Like in 1966, he tries to end the Vietnam War by threatening the vice president of the United States. So the last part of the story is about this character right here. This is Dr. Jack Hobbs, who is kind of like your Lex Luthor. He is self-proclaimed the smartest man in the world. And what he wants to do is get rid of superheroes. And he's devised like this plan to take their powers away and give them to other villains so they can have their powers. Very Silver Age type of story for sure. But he manages to successfully do it. He takes away their power with a gun and he gives them to villains. And now it's up to the Union to come together, or whoever has their powers left, to put a stop to Dr. Jack Hobbs. And the reason he wants to do that is because he feels like he doesn't have anything against Sheldon himself, right? It's not who he is, it's what he represents. And what he represents is something that can't be fixed, because what's going to happen is, I kind of like that explanation. It's a very Lex Luthor type of explanation, that if we have somebody with those powers, then super villains are going to start to exist. And they're going to come in with weapons, of like nuclear weapons and things like that. So that's what his whole role is. Now, in the very back, then we'll look at the binding. The Jupiter's Legacy Volume 2 trade cover, and then bio on the creators right here, and the Mark Millar collection, including work from DC and Marvel Comics. And then your end sheets. Now let's look. 312 pages, and again, retailing for $49.99. And you do have there you go, the book ribbon right there. Gold, no less. I forgot to talk about Pete and his relationship to his dad. But yeah, all these characters, you've seen some of their legacy in Jupiter's Legacy, but this is where it all began. So I assume Volume 2 will be Jupiter's Legacy, and then the third one will be the third story arc. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this library edition, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this library edition. In the comments down below, let me know if you've read Jupiter's Legacy, or I guess Jupiter's Circle in this case, or what other Mark Millar work do you want to be given the library edition treatment? Or rather, what other Dark Horse work would you like to see in this big, beautiful format? Any questions, leave those down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.